Welcome back to the corner, everyone. I am the DM as always, and today I want to look at Dragon Age Veilguard. And the reason why is because I've seen absolutely nothing impressive except for the hair physics uh, come from this game. The graphics don't honestly look that great, at least not from first impressions. They reminded me a lot of like Fable, like old Fable 2, Fable 3 style graphics. They look like a worse Fortnite, if you could believe that, at least to me, right? And graphics are entirely subjective. But I saw a lot of clips going around bragging about the hair physics, and look, I'm gonna be upfront and honest, guys. I don't give a fuck about hair physics. Hair physics are like the last thing on my list. And if that's the only thing your game has going for you, I'm sorry, your game sucks. So, but this is a hands-on preview from IGN, the people known to give everything 7 out of 10s, including Concord. So let's see what this looks like and what they say about it.
It's been 10 long years since Dragon Age Inquisition, and the expectations for the next game in the series, Dragon Age the Veilguard, seem impossible. A full decade, a bevy of behind-the-scenes changes, and an interesting start to its marketing campaign made me a little worried for my most highly anticipated game of the year.
I admire you. What you've been through would break most people.
But one of my biggest concerns, based on early previews, was that it could be headed in the direction of being a linear action game rather than its more open-world predecessor. While Dragon Age is known for changing its...
That is something that I was concerned about too, is it looked very bland. And it looked like it was going to be a very, very linear kind of action game, like RPG, quote unquote. And so I'm glad that they're bringing that up. I honestly didn't expect them to.
Style with each installment, I hoped dearly that it wouldn't lose too much of the DA DNA I fell in love with. After hours of hands-on time spread across 2 days, I'm pleased to say that I walked away with excitement and curiosity, but mostly relief to wave many of those concerns goodbye. My time with the Veilguard covered a wide smattering of things, including the incredibly expansive character creator, the introductory quests, a faction mission, and a companion quest a little deeper into the game. But I was mostly pleased with my ability to just explore Northern Thedas and all its gorgeously designed glory, experiencing a setting in Dragon Age lore that we've really only heard about. To be clear, the Veilguard isn't the open-world playground that Inquisition was. As game director Corinne Bush has previously stated, it's more mission-based. But what impressed me after the first few hours was how much exploration can still be done in the various regions, as well as the impact the player character, Rook, can have on those regions.
And there we go. Easy.
So hearing that they're more mission-based does make me kind of concerned. Like I don't necessarily want the massive open areas that Inquisition had, because I'm gonna be honest, I felt like a lot of the area in Inquisition was pointless. They never really added anything. I mean, it added like lore or whatever, but a lot of it just felt empty and bland. But I want more of like what original Dragon Age had, where like if you went to Ostagar, it was its own map, sure, but it was open, it was large, and it had every bit of it was filled with something, right? Red Cliff, when you went to Red Cliff, it was open, it had something going on everywhere you went, right? Whereas in Inquisition, it was massive, but the only things really ever going on were like random little skirmishes between factions that I didn't care about, right? So maybe it'll be good. It being more mission based, quote unquote, could theoretically lead to more areas like in the original Dragon Age, but it could also lead to very linear areas. So we'll see.
Wow, isn't that something?
Consider it something of a mix of Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. The more streamlined approach of the former,
I didn't like Dragon Age 2. Dragon Age 2 was fucking dog shit.
with the geographically and socio-politically diverse world of the latter.
Districts must remain in their homes.
Of course, some of the bigger art style, combat, and gameplay changes will be subject to personal taste. But after my time with the Veilguard, I left feeling like these 10 long years just might have been worth the wait. As fans have already seen from the first gameplay trailer, players are dropped right into the city of Minrathous in the middle of the action as Solus prepares a ritual that will devastate Thetis. Luckily, our old friend Varric has recruited you to help, and it barely takes a couple of minutes for the game to put the focus on Rook. After a surprisingly concise story recap from Varric, there are a number of aspects the Veilguard starts easing you into. For one, the combat. Gone are the days of Dragon Age Origins' more CRPG-inspired tactical system, offering a style that's a mix of quick action and a mechanic where you can pause and pull up your radial menu. While this absolutely does take some getting used to, and it'll be a gradual process to create what could be a highly customized build while learning all your companions' different abilities, it didn't take me long to actually start having fun with it.
Here's the thing. Dragon Age was never about raw action. The combat was always about tactics. Because, especially on the higher difficulties, if you didn't think about the encounters, you were fucking dead. Full stop. It didn't matter what fucking build you had. You were just dead. So...
I largely played mage and rogue builds during my hands-on time, and also quickly started to lean on certain companions' abilities. For one, the mage healing ability was essential. For one particularly difficult remnant, I basically established a pattern where I was only using Balara's mana to heal me, dodging and playing it safe when it got too risky. Nev's ability to slow time was also one I kept returning to, offering a bit more control on the battlefield when the situation got a little too fast-paced. And for you glass cannon builds out there, you'll want to have a warrior around to taunt your enemies out of your way.
I mean, all of these things, like wanting a mage for healing and wanting a tank for tanking, these are universal in video games with multiple party members. You always want those. If you don't have those, especially like you can get away without a tank, right? But you can't get away without healing. You absolutely need to be able to fucking heal. If you can't heal, you will just always die.
No problem.
Like a whole lot in the Veilguard, combat revolves around your companions, even though you can't fully take control of them like in previous Dragon Age games.
That's bad. That's real bad. I like being able to control the battlefield, and especially my personal companions. I want to be able to specifically, like, tailor how they act. In the original Dragon Age, you could do just that. You could set when they use potions. You could do this in other games too. You can set when they use potions, when they use certain actions, whether or not they even use a certain ability. Say you get some ability that you don't actually want them to use, but it's required to get the ability after it that you do want them to use. You could turn off that first ability. So I don't like that I can't control my companions fully. You 100% should be able to. There's no reason to not allow the player to do that. So far there are 3 big divergences from all the other Dragon Age games, which is graphics, combat, and now control. I don't like that. That's 3 strikes already.
Different companions have different combo options together, and there are certainly opportunities to build team synergy. Oh, and you'll want to listen to your companions in combat too, as they'll occasionally drop some useful hints.
Hitting us from range.
So she said that was... She's saying they drop useful hints.
Too, as they'll occasionally drop some useful hints.
Hitting us from range.
So by the time she gets out the sentence, the attack is already en route to you. You can see that it's a ranged attack. That's not useful. What would be useful is if Bellara just said ranged attack or magic attack. That would be far faster and it would come out before their attack came out. So the information would actually be useful.
But combat aside, your dialogue choices, your rook's background, and the frequent decisions you make are immediately important, which shouldn't be too surprising for fans of BioWare games. The dialogue wheel is back, of course, as is the approval-disapproval system.
We haven't got a lot of time. Varric said you had a lead on Solus?
You get right to the point.
But I was surprised to see that the Veilguard actually explains the consequences of some of your dialogue choices in very clear terms.
See, you say that.
It's a variation of the so-and-so will remember that system, but more specific.
But we do have Nev's location now, so...
Take, for example, my first confrontation with Solus, aka Fen'Harel, aka the Dreadwolf. I chose a more sarcastic, humorous approach with him, and at the end of our confrontation, text on the side of the screen informed me that I have traded verbal jabs with Solus.
This is your responsibility now.
I mean, but you could already see that. Them putting up a prompt saying that you've done the thing isn't impressive. That isn't groundbreaking. That isn't interesting. These kind of things have been in games for like a decade now, I'm pretty sure.
It was far from the only occurrence of this sort of text, and it leaves me curious as to how your relationships with various characters will build and branch out over time.
Exactly the same as all the other Dragon Age games. That's how we'll do it. The exact same as all other BioWare games. Like, this isn't new, this isn't surprising, and it's going to explore out the exact same way it always has with BioWare games.
Based on your attitude. Speaking of consequences, it quickly became clear to me that there would consistently be tons of choices in the Veilguard that'll have lasting results. It probably sounds like I'm stating the obvious here, but I got the sense that even more of these kinds of choices might be peppered throughout than the usual BioWare game.
I don't. I think those are going to be the standard.
Right at the beginning, for instance, I made a choice that led to Harding getting injured, and she was still bruised up for the remainder of the next couple hours. I felt like a real jerk about it, and that was probably the point.
Well, yeah, you should. Harding's an amazing person. How dare you get her injured?
Dragon Age the Veilguard seemed to be telling me, right from the start, that I'm going to feel like a jerk a lot.
You don't slow down for much, do you?
Without spoiling too much, you'll also be able to see some of your progression and choices in the environment around you as well. But once introductions were out of the way, it was time to explore the wide world of Thetis and see its past and present collide.
Shall we?
Let's do this.
This is what I'm interested in.
As mentioned earlier, one of my biggest worries was that the Veilguard could end up being more linear in its approach, trading branching gameplay for a straight line. And sure, the opening hours, essentially the tutorial zone, are a little railroady, save for a couple key decisions you have to make. But once you're past that and more established within Act 1, you're much more free to tackle quests as you please as you unlock more and more regions. You do this via the crossroads. For those of you who aren't brushed up on your Dragon Age lore, that's a nexus between the waking world of Thetis and the metaphysical realm of the Fade, through which the ancient elves would travel through magical mirrors called alluvians. You now use the alluvian.
So this is interesting. These were introduced back in the original, and they're always sprinkled into games and always talked about, but we've never used them. We've never done anything with them other than maybe smash them.
For that.
Which brings up another point. Since we are using the alluvians, I wonder how many of the areas that had an alluvian will be available. This could be a point in the positive direction for Veilguard if it includes every area that had an alluvian. Not like all of their subsequent connecting areas or anything like that, mind you, but like in the original Dragon Age game for the Dalish, you encounter an alluvian within one of the first zones. And you have the option to either smash it or leave it alone and run away from it. So, given that Dragon Age has always been very has always taken your previous choices from other games and then had like consequences and effects happen in your game for it. I wonder if this is going to be one of those things they add in, even if they're just small little areas that were like immediately connected to the Illuvian mirror. That could still be really cool, and it'd be a really cool callback to previous games.
That same purpose, and to unlock new regions, you have to fight through certain areas of the crossroads before you can start fast traveling to them. Unlocking said regions opens up fast traveling to them. To unlock new regions, you have to fight through certain areas of the crossroads before you can start fast traveling to them. Unlocking said regions opens up a vast network of areas, and not unlike past Dragon Age games, they're dramatically different from one another.
As the gods' champion passed freely, so will you.
Take, for example, the Arlithan Forest, a gorgeous, colorful region that mixes greenery with elven magic. You can see nugs burrow into the grass, magical artifacts abound, and there's a vast array of nature to simply admire. You're hit with a massive tone shift.
Hang on, because Arlithan Forest sounds familiar, but I might just be tripping. Okay, so I have heard about it before. It's the ancient Elven Empire. That's why it was. Or the capital of it. That's why it was familiar. I thought maybe we had been there before, but no. But this is what I remember it from. Okay.
However, when you head to Hosberg,
Lavendel Village. Whatever happened?
Say that again.
And there's a vast array of nature to simply admire. You're hit with a massive tone shift, however, when you head to Hosberg.
Lavendel Village. Whatever happened here looks like Demeter's Crossing.
Currently under siege by the Blight, here is where you'll see some of the more horror-inspired aesthetics, and frankly, just some of the grosser aspects of the Blight. While the Veilguard's tone certainly leans more high fantasy in places like the Crossroads, don't worry. Those who miss the gore and dark fantasy of Origins will find that too in places where the Blight has spread.
Okay, that's good. That's honestly like the original Dragon Age game is kind of the tone that I'm looking for in a Dragon Age game, which is why I didn't really like well, it's not why I didn't like 2, but it's one of the reasons, and it's definitely why I didn't like Inquisition.
But I couldn't help but spend a lot of my time just running around in Treviso, the bustling city that's home to the Antivan Crows faction. For one thing, a lively city feels like a novelty in Dragon.
I wonder if you have a save file that where Zevran survived, if he'll be here. For those who don't know, Zevran was in Dragon Age 2, and at the end of his character storyline, he can either get killed or he can survive. So I wonder if he survived in that save file, what happens here? Is he here? Because he was a part of the Antivan Crows, unless my mind is tripping.
Age. But there was simply so much to explore that I kept getting sidetracked. A merchant with unique items here, a new quest to pick up over there, and a random combat encounter over there.
I want to go back to this. I really hope that on PC, I don't have to click and hold to fucking purchase something. Because that is the one thing that I hate the most about games like with these kind of menus and whatnot, is it's designed for console players, and I understand why with a controller you might want to have that, but like with a mouse, I have very precise control over where I want to put the mouse. Whereas a controller, you have to use the analog stick and the cursor slowly moves. So I really hope that on PC, because this game is coming to PC, I guarantee that. I really hope that I could just fucking click something and it happens, and I don't have to fucking press and hold.
Here, a new quest to pick up over there, and a random combat encounter over there.
That's good. Potentially. So the way she makes this seem like is that this place is very busy and that you always have something to do, right? But is it condensed busy? Or is it spread out and you have to go and try and find these things, right? That's what
And that's just when I wasn't looking around for a cat or dog to pet. Because yes, you can pet the cats and dogs.
This is good. These are very important mechanics that should be in every game that has a cat or dog.
Outside of the cats and dogs, there are some unique ways to interact with the environment as well. Each companion has an environmental ability, some of which came in quite handy for me. In my time in the Arlethan Forest, I frequently called upon Balara, whose environmental ability allows her to tinker with magical artifacts. In a nice quality of life feature, your companions don't even need to be in your party in order for you to use these abilities. As an aside, another one of my favorite quality of life.
So, while I don't necessarily hate that, that you don't need the companion in your party to use their ability, it does make the party system a bit redundant. Also, it tells me that you're going to have so many companions that you're not going to have the party space for them. I understand why games limit party sizes. It's to make balancing a lot easier. However, one thing I've always kind of hated about party systems in games is that they always give you like 2 to 3 times the amount of companions that you can have in the party at any one time. And personally, I would rather them have fewer companions in a larger party size, like 5 or 6 members in a party, including yourself, so like 4 to 5 extra party members, than to have a party size of 4, so you and 3 other companions, and have like 7 different companions.
Additions is the fact that party banter pauses and picks up again later if you trigger combat, a cutscene, or anything else that would interrupt their dialogue. That's right, no more awkward standing around in order to hear the complete conversation.
Oh, yes.
If you're
That's good. That is a positive. That is a step in the right direction. I like that. That is one thing that a lot of games just don't do. They have this like banter and back and forth, but if it gets interrupted by something, they just stop the conversation, and the next time the conversation is picked up, it starts from the beginning. My concern is that it's going to be repetitive, that there's not going to be enough like back and forth conversations to be able to not repeat. Baldur's Gate 3 does this, where I've played through that game like 4 or 5 times now. And outside of it being a new game, I've never heard them repeat conversations. Now, I'm sure it can, but I've never heard it, right? That's just because there are so many back and forth banter options between party members. Not Dragon Age, God of War does this exact thing, where if you and Atreus or you and whoever you're partied with start up a conversation or going back and forth, and then something interrupts it, one of them will be like, we'll talk, or I'm pretty sure it's usually Kratos will be like, we'll talk later, we'll finish this later. And then later, he'll be like, so about that thing.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, the difficulty and accessibility options do allow for about just as much or as little hand-holding as you need. For example, with one Antivan Crow's quest I was doing, I could turn the navigation on and simply follow the game's guidance, or turn it off and look for clues in the environment to follow. In this case, the crow's purple symbol painted on certain walls.
That's good. That is really good. Having the ability to turn off these helpful features and whatnot, because there are a lot of people that prefer to have to read quest dialogue and follow in-game clues in order to find where the quest objective is. I'm that way for most things until I start to get frustrated, and then I want some help, right? But there are also people who don't want that, who just want to follow the quest trackers, want to just experience the story. This is good. And I think having the quest trackers and everything on by default is the way to go. And then having the ability to turn them off in the accessibility features is a good thing.
Another mark this way.
I also just
That's something I hope that you can also turn off. Is I mean, just this right here is this like little, oh, it's this way, or oh, what about shooting that thing? That's something that really pissed off a lot of people, myself included, about like the God of War games, where like if you spend more than like 5 minutes on a fucking puzzle, Atreus just blurts out the fucking answer. Like, shut the fuck up.
I also just happened to be playing an Antivan Crow Rook while completing this quest, which led to some fun dialogue options.
We crows are all the army Antiva has, but it's not like we can field the garrison.
Once I was in the thick of things, I could clearly see the features in the Veilguard that boiled down to, okay, we heard the complaints about Inquisition, specifically addressing the infamous Hinterlands problem, which is a reference to the first open world area players visit in Inquisition. The zone was packed with more than 50 side quests, many of which boiled down to mere fetch quests, and it left many players drowning in a bevy of checklists that felt inconsequential to the story.
And it's not just that they felt inconsequential, they were inconsequential. Almost all side quests in Inquisition are inconsequential and do absolutely fucking nothing. There are only a select few that actually change the story or have any impact on the story at all.
The Veilguard has boiled this down quite a lot. You're still free to explore, but the scope isn't nearly as dizzying, and the quests point back to the main story, a region or faction, or a companion. Another clear reaction to criticisms of Inquisition are our villains in the Veilguard, Algernon and Gillenane. The two elven gods feel much more present throughout the events of the early game than Corypheus, the frankly lackluster baddie of Inquisition.
Whatever comes, we're ready for a fight.
Corypheus was a terrible villain for Dragon Age Inquisition.
Words easily
Terrible.
said, but rarely proven.
While there's a whole lot more Thedas to see and talk about, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it back home to the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse will likely be the most important location of the Veilguard, serving as the hub for you and your companions. Each one of your companions has their own room, and conveniently, a light shines outside of their door when they have a cutscene available. Once you get further into Act 1, it certainly starts to feel more lived in, and you can discover some pretty charming character quirks. For example, I found that Emmerich's skeletal assistant Manfred enjoys spending time on the balcony, and we even got a few games of rock, paper, scissors in. The Lighthouse is also, obviously, where you're able to do some housekeeping, especially when it comes to the caretaker.
Offer, dweller. I will answer.
This wildly helpful spirit is always standing by to help you enchant and upgrade armor for you and your companions. But I found the Lighthouse somewhat symbolic of one of the biggest challenges this game is facing, bringing in new players while honoring the now incredibly vast lore that Dragon Age has built across the games, comic books, short stories, and more. Basically, if you were worried that the name change from Dragon Age Dreadwolf would mean less Solus, think again. His history, along with the history of the other elven gods, is baked into the Lighthouse, and you learn more and more about the threat you face as you unlock Solus's murals with various wolf statues. You even get to see some of his memories firsthand.
They need gods who can protect them.
We are not gods. You will learn that.
As a lore nerd, I very much appreciated this, as well as the various other callbacks to series history. The Origins fans will likely love the Grey Warden heavy quests, and we already know the Inquisitor will be involved in some way, as you can recreate them and select your world states in the character creator. But I do wonder if it'll overwhelm.
Good. I'm glad that they're going to be you can select your world states and everything. I wonder if it's going to be like I wonder if selecting a world state is like the website version. On the website, you can literally go through and decide every single choice that has ever been given, like consequential choice, of course, that has ever been given in every single game. And depending on what you select for one thing will change how something else can go on. So I'm very curious to see how that works.
New players, which BioWare certainly seems to be courting with its action-heavy combat system. That's why it helps, at least, to have something of an outsider like Rook to take the helm of the Veilguard. Plus, the scrappiness of Rook reminded me a bit of playing as Hawke in Dragon Age 2, rather than the more Chosen One-esque protagonists of the Warden in Origins and the Inquisitor in Inquisition. In short, a lot's changed in Dragon Age the Veilguard, but there was so much I was relieved to see stay. The focus on companions and romance, the rich lore, and a gorgeous world to explore. It
I found it really funny that she's like rich lore showing Morgan.
goes without saying that there's still a ton of the Veilguard that I haven't seen, especially if it's as big as Origins and Inquisition, and it certainly seems like it. But after finishing my preview, I found myself even more eager to dive into it, and much more hopeful that this could be the hit BioWare needs.
So, overall, I didn't really see anything that like, wow, this is impressive or anything. But to me, that's kind of fine. It does make me interested. There are some things that are interesting and some things that I want to know more about. Like, I would like to see the character creation. I would like to see how some of these early story points actually play out, right? That's kind of what I was hoping this video was. It wasn't, sadly. It was 22 minutes gameplay. Maybe I'll watch this next. But actually, I probably will. But I'm like cautiously, I don't want to say optimistic, but like interested in Veilguard, which is more than what I was before. Which before I wasn't interested at all, and I didn't really care. So, yeah. I'm interested to see what is going to happen with more of this reveal. So anyways, that's all for this video. Thank you all for coming to my corner. I've been the DM as always. If you liked the video, make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe. If you disliked the video, hit the dislike button, leave a comment letting me know why, and I will see you all later.